Time has passed, it seems ages ago, since the confrontation with the troll and the death of Thomas. But his death has weighed heavy on the fellowship. The weather, which seemed to favor their search for the horn in the barrows, had almost on its heels spun. Days which were pleasant and sunny, rain that reminded folks of spring had turned to sheets of cold. Very little sounds of laughter is heard amongst the fellowship. As for the past 9 days, they've searched through the barrows. Arafor has led this group deeper into the southern barrows. You've searched several barrows in that time, each time thinking you may have found the one that harbors the horn, only to come up short. Rations are running low, with little prospect of finding game or berry or root to forage. Foreboding. It's heavy in the air. Dire. Everyone knows this, but no one says it. Badu, in those 9 days since Thomas's passing, the whispers have been constant. The corner of your eyes, you see the movement of shadows, only to turn and look and see nothing. This day is just like the others, the whispers ever present. At your ears, sign of movement.
And it's really starting to weigh heavy on him. These last few days they've been going pretty scarcely too, trying to save their rations. And Badu's, a large man. He barely gets by as it is on caloric intake, and now he has to cut back. And not that it's the end of the world, he'd rather survive than have a full belly for a day, but that on top of the exhaustion that comes with trudging through a shadow-touched land, and then these constant whispers always vying for his attention, it's becoming just mentally exhausting. His eyes look tired, his eyelids look heavy, but his eyes themselves continue to dart back and forth. He every time he thinks he sees something, he always does a quick glance, and then has to shrug it off. But a few moments later, there's another one, and he looks. Anybody who would be paying attention at all would probably see his head almost on a constant swivel. And while they may think that it's because he's looking for any possible attacks, he's actually trying to figure out what these whispers are saying to him. He's trying to figure out what they want. As they're trudging through the Barrow Downs, the weather's not fair. His beard and his hair are dirty. They're matted. They're getting knotted. He hasn't been taking care of it at all. He's been too distracted. And he walks towards the back of the fellowship, always bringing up the rear in case anything were to attack, but also to stay out of the sight of prying eyes, looking at him as he slowly descends into madness.
Yes. Wari would probably be the first of the fellowship to notice this change in you, Badu. And I wonder if his concern is something he keeps to himself, or something he brings forward?
It would actually be the first time that Worry would keep something like this to himself for a while. Having to skip meals, having to trudge through this area, having to run again from another troll just constantly reminds him of his two dwarven friends that were slaughtered by the first one, and how quickly this could have turned for the second. And I think he would probably notice it, but he wouldn't say anything. He keep a somewhat close eye on him, but remain concentrating on his own thoughts and feelings.
Darkness has definitely taken hold of the Fellowship. You see Moira, whether she's riding along on Isfael or guiding her by her reins. She's quiet, only speaking when spoken to, and even then, in short, curt responses, not out of any kind of malice, but the brooding. Lily, it has been tough for you being a hobbit, halfling, shire folk. When you first, you probably imagined you first, when they first mentioned by Arafor eating half rations, you probably thought it a joke. But you've adapted. Yes. So, question about hit points. So you would probably have regained your hit points by now. You can use a hit die for every hour that you rest. So you've had 9 nights of rest. You've also seen the encroachment of the shadow. You think back to the encounter you had with the Craven. Seems so long ago. Arafor, several times you've had your Fellowship hide as best you can as you move through the downs, as you see those twisted birds drifting through the skies above. And Tomas had mentioned to the Fellowship that he and his father were hunting Bargus. On your 4th night after Thomas's death, you experienced Bargus the first hand as a pack of them attacked your camp. You were able to drive them away. Though since that time, Arafor, you have seen several signs of these large, misshapen wolves, twisted by the evil that is the Downs. But they've not attacked your Fellowship since. You wonder if maybe they are tracking you or not, but you've not seen sign of that. So I was going to say, Lily, the night before, as you sat by the fire, pondering your Fellowship's quest, you had that heavy feeling of impending foul weather. And true to that, as the day goes on, you see the skies darken. You hear the first rumbles of thunder. It's now mid-afternoon when the first heavy drops of rain start to fall upon your Fellowship. You're in an open grassland, not much in the way of trees. And of course, you guys are in the Downs, so there's these rolling kind of hills. Some of them are actual hillocks, and others are ancient barrows that now inter the dead. You see the first strokes of lightning off in the distance. What would your Fellowship like to do?
Lily would like to warn everyone. She's been uncharacteristic, rather quiet for the last couple days. She's miserable. She finds it hard to remember home, and when she does, all she thinks about is what is the food. Then she gets more miserable. But she's She just looks around. I hate to tell you this, bad weather's coming. If we can find some shelter, I think it would be good. She basically speaking to Arafor.
Yeah, that's something you probably would have told them that morning, earlier that morning.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, even Badu would probably have been able to look up at the sky and say, storm's coming. These are dark, troubling clouds, well before the first rumbles of thunder. So yeah, I would assume, Lily, that you would have told the fellowship that in the morning. Maybe hoping the premonition that you had the night before was off a bit.
Really? I think Lily would be looking for a possible place to take shelter.
Yeah, as you scan the horizon around you, again, these sheets of rain coming down, really impeding your ability to see at great distance. You see nothing, Lily, that you think would afford you any sort of shelter. And it's just within minutes of this rain starting, you guys are all soaked pretty near to the bone.
Yeah, and I think Arafor would actually probably counsel against it anyways, saying something along the lines of, "We're already running short on food. Time is not on our side. If it takes anything more than an hour or two for this storm to go away, we'll just be here. Need to try to get this over with as soon as we possibly can.
Right.
I know the rain is not enjoyable to travel through, but it's better than starving to death."
Okay, quick question. Lily, your ability to kind of sense the weather, does, excuse me, will that let you know within in a ballpark kind of way, like how long an event may last?
Have a second here.
Well, we're just going to roll with it right now, and we can modify later on after you have a chance to read. I just don't want to spend a lot of time looking it up. So I'm going to say that you can pretty much, ballpark it. I mean, it's not an exact science for sure. So you know that there's going to be a pretty devastating thunderstorm that's going to roll through, but you think that it's going to go through fairly quickly. Probably you would guess at best an hour or two. So with that counsel, Arafor, no one, unless someone wants to speak up. So no one, I'm not hearing anybody. So you just kind of pulled cloaks tighter, shoulders hunched. You just slowly make your way in the direction you're leading them. From your time here, as you've passed through the barrows many times, Arafor, as in your duties as a ranger, there's a cluster of barrows that you are bringing this fellowship to. A cluster of barrows that you believe might be the last best hope at finding this horn. And you believe that if not, then your fellowship will need to retreat and maybe return at another time if you're not able to find it. So the travel is slow. It's miserable at best. The water gets into your boots, and there's a strong wind that blows and pushes this rain right against face, causing everyone to cover their eyes. You make very poor time, but and it's probably about an hour before the storm stops. There's a large stroke of lightning off further south. I would like everybody to give me a perception check, please. The rain has slowed down, but there's still a rumble of thunder. So Lily, if you could tell me your perception roll, please.
14.
14. Arafor?
17.
Perfect. Badu?
I'm rocking a 4.
You're distracted by your new friends as they whisper to you.
Yeah.
Their voices seem
Nice
stronger
guys.
in the darkness of this storm. And last
I
but
hate
not
it.
least, Wari, what did you get?
18 total.
Perfect. So as this stroke of lightning lights the sky, Arafor and Wari, you're the first to see it. Off in a distant hill, probably a few hundred yards, you see it's almost like you almost have to take a quick double take, but then the light fades. And the darkening skies, it just looks like a shadowed form, but you're almost certain that you see a great throne or seat resting upon this gentle rise of a hill at its apex. And in the flash, and with those rolls, in the flash of that lightning, it looks as if someone is sitting upon this chair or throne.
Someone is in like a person or possibly a statue.
It looks like it. Well, it's hard to say at this distance and with the storm raging around you. But it looks as though it's someone sitting there, and this someone would probably be large. How big are you, Arafor?
Pretty average to tall. I have 6 feet down on my character sheet. So
Yeah.
regular,
Okay.
average dude size.
Yeah. So you would guess that this is someone probably as large as Badu, maybe even larger. It appears that way, anyways.
So Wari would just casually get Arafor's attention, sure that he saw they're both looking in the same direction, and just kind of nod.
Yeah, Arafor, I imagine would kind of like signal for people to stop. And he would point it out to everybody just to make sure that there was nobody who was going in without the knowledge. Just kind of pointing up. There seems to be some kind of seat or throne up on atop the hill. I see a figure sitting in it. I'm not sure what it is.
And as you say that, Arafor, there's a rumble of thunder. Sounds as though as the storm is moving further west.
Did you say how far away roughly this seat is?
Yeah, it's about 200-300 yards, maybe.
And we have direct travel to it.
Yeah, it's fairly open. This part of the excuse me, this part of the downs is kind of rolling hills. And what had happened is they would just make these barrows already in natural hills, just maybe build them up a little bit more. This looks to be one of the larger hills. It sits higher than the others around it.
Well, that's an odd find in this area, don't you think, Arafor?
Odd indeed. Unfortunately, if we can see him, it, whatever it is, chances are it can see us too. We should try to figure out what's happening here before we move on, just in case.
So the throne or chair is situated such that it looks as though it's facing eastward. You guys are coming from a northerly direction towards it. So that if someone is truly sitting in this throne, both Wari and Arafor, you would believe that unless they incline their head your direction, they may or may not see you.
Yeah, with that knowledge in mind, Arafor would probably suggest we should try to trail around to the side, the back of it. That way, if it is something that requires action, we can hopefully catch it unawares.
I get a little closer, I can go take a look.
Another distant rumble of thunder, a stroke of lightning. The rain is all about stopped, but the wind still continues. It blows hard against you, pressing your cold, damp clothes against your flesh. So why don't we give you guys, we'll do a group stealth roll.
You have any advantage or anything for the torrential rain?
No, the rain has basically stopped. It's just this strong, gusting wind.
Just looking to help our chances.
I would say you probably would have advantage only because the wind would carry any sound in in an opposite direction. And correct me if I'm wrong, Arafor, knowing this with the wind, you probably would come at an angle that sound would be carried away from this throne.
Yeah, exactly. Arafor's kind of plan is to kind of, instead of just going straight to the side of the throne, to kind of come around like the back angle of it. So that way, like the only way that this person would see them is to like literally turn all the way sideways and like look backwards over his shoulder.
Perfect. Well, because we have I'm going to give you guys advantage on your stealth. You guys can decide who's going to actually roll stealth for your group.
Lily's like, I
So
could probably
I
sneak
already,
up.
You already rolled, Arafor?
yeah, I rolled
Same.
with advantage is a modified 20. So
Okay, perfect. You're
Take
fairly
it.
confident that you guide your the fellowship, and so the five of you make your way slowly up this hill. You're at the back of this throne. You can no longer see the figure that is seated upon it. You don't see any movement, either stepping up or moving off from the throne. Right, so now you're probably within a dozen paces of the throne. Distant rumble of thunder.
Has it moved at all?
You've seen no movement, and I imagine many of you have kept your eyes locked on that throne.
Yeah, looking around probably as we went toward it for like tracks or anything else for where this thing came from.
You can give me a survival roll, but it will be at disadvantage. The torrential rain of this storm would probably wash away most tracks.
Could Lily help him with it?
Are you trained in survival?
Actually, I am.
Okay.
So yes,
You can roll without disadvantage, Wari, as you search
Ah.
because Lily's kind of near you and helping you to search the ground.
Good.
After all, she's close to the ground.
That'd be a total of 18 then. Good job.
Yeah. You search and you see nothing. No signs of any sort of traffic. What are you doing, Badu, while the two small folk are kind of like searching very quietly as you approach the room?
So Badu, being the largest of the bunch, probably has a good angle a better angle maybe to see what's going on up there. He's trying to, he's kind of like leaning one way and the other, trying to see if he can peer around the throne and maybe catch a glimpse of anything, but he's not really able to get a good look from this distance. So he's pretty much he's got his hand axe out, and kind of trained in one hand. He's just kind of lightly bouncing it up and down, ready to toss it in case anything were to pop out at them. And he's got his other hand kind of, his fingers kind of twitch, ready to grab his axe at the first sign of trouble.
And how about you, Arafor? What are you doing?
yeah, I think once Arafor kind of sees them like looking around and not seeing anything, he would with his hand on the hilt of his sword, ready to draw it at any time if needed to, he would kind of like look to everybody, get their attention, and then kind of like nod towards it and like begin to take a step, basically trying to, as non-verbally as he can, communicate that he's trying to like he's gonna go around and actually look. But if something
Perfect.
happens, that he wants them to be ready.
Yeah. So much like when you've tracked agents of the shadow, you kind of hunker down and hunch weapons at the ready. Give me a perception roll.
That is a 10.
Yeah. As you come around the edge of this large stone seat, what you see of the chair itself, it seems as though it was carved from stone as one piece. It appears ancient. The stone now rutted and rough from the passage of time. You see that it's moss and lichen has started to grow along its sides and along the back. And as you creep around the edge of this chair, the chair itself probably sits a good 8 to 10 feet in full height. You see what appears to be a hunched form upon the whether it's cloaked or not. It's hard to tell in the late light of the afternoon. But it does appears as though something is hunched in this chair. And it appears as though it's facing eastward.
Or he's just casually waiting for somebody to tell him to go check it out.
Yeah, you see Arafor kind of creeping along. Which way? To the left or the right of this chair, Arafor?
Whichever direction that we were going in, he wouldn't like
Okay.
go all the way around it.
I'll just say you kind of swing to the right, and you see this. You're almost at the side of the chair, still at the same distance, probably about 12 paces, Arafor, from the chair. When you see that hunkered over, it appears to be a hunkered over form or a hunched over form.
Lily's
So having kind of a more clear view of it, is this like a person? Is this a creature? Like, is it moving? Is it not? Like, what does he actually see?
It's safe for you to say that it's not a man. And if it were a man, you would guess that it's deformed. It seems to be covered. It's at it like maybe a hood drawn up over it to shield it from maybe the weather. But it looks very large and deformed, lumpy. And if you want to get closer, you can definitely give me another perception roll.
Yeah, that's a 14.
Yeah. As you start to draw closer cautiously, you hear a hum, and it appears to be coming from this creature.
By the way, Lily's come up on the same side Arafor is, but she's not getting closer. She's just knocked an arrow and is kind of
So you would
sitting
see
in the background.
You would see the same form that Arafor has seen.
She's just waiting in case something happens.
So it doesn't appear to be moving, Arafor. But as you squint your eyes and give me an investigation roll.
$14.
Consistent. I like it. It appears as some form of insect is flying around the form. You see maybe hundreds.
Yeah. With that, Arafor would kind of nod to everyone else to kind of stay at the ready. But he'll approach further. And when he's within a couple of steps, he would probably just kind of instinctively say something. Maybe not even necessarily words, but just kind of like a sound. Just if this person is alive, he wants to see if they're actually gonna talk.
Yeah. As you draw that close, you would see off in the distance there's a stroke of lightning. It kind of lights off the distant sky, followed by that distant rumble of thunder. It probably distracts you for just a second, but as your eyes kind of flip back to this creature, you see that it's not a creature at all, but it's a large nest of wasps. As you kind of stop mid-stride, Arafor, I need you to make a dex save, please. As this wall, this cloud of wasps rise up from this nest and try to engulf you and sting you. They are. You can say that out loud.
That is a 16.
Wasps are the
16.
worst.
Yeah. You quickly cover your face with your cloak and kind of fade back as these wasps try to get to your soft spots and sting you. Let's see. And you are going to take... You'll take 1 point of piercing damage as a few of these wasps are able to sting you. I do need you to make a Constitution save.
Eight.
8. You're not able to push them and smack and swat them aside in time before some of their venom gets into your bloodstream. You can feel it. It's this numb feeling in your hands and on your cheek. It starts to spread. And give me a D4 roll.
4.
Oh, wow. Your dice are not liking you. Jeff, you might want to switch out your dice. That for the next 4 hours, you are going to suffer from the poisoned condition, which I believe gives you disadvantage to your that's the attitude to have, man. Jeff just put in the chat. He said dice switching is for wimps. I love it. Love it. Yeah, so you're going to suffer from the poison conditions as enough of this venom has gotten into Arafor's system as to so you kind of have these like shakes, and so yeah, you would suffer for the next 4 hours from that, and the rest of you would see this cloud of wasps just engulfs Arafor. You see him swatting and trying to cover himself. He kind of staggers away. And as the rest of you probably step back in horror, that's definitely what Moira does. There's a gasp from her, and she pulls Israel by the reins back. But then the cloud rises up in the sky and drifts off to the east.
Worry would, as he was backing away as well, he would, as the cloud lifts, he would slowly start to put one of his torches back on the side of his backpack. He's getting ready to go light it on fire if he had to. And he would walk over to Arafor after a few more seconds to see if he's okay.
Yeah, as you get close to him, Wari, you can see overall, he's no worse for wear, but you see several raised and red welts, both along his face, neck, and along where where gloves might meet the wrist. And you see he's kind of shaking a bit. These very slight tremors.
Where I would look over to Moira and Lily and kind of be like, "Oh, Moira, Lily, this doesn't look good."
Yeah, Moira would look at you, Lily, and say, "Lily, can't you do something for him?"
Well, let me see. And Lily looks through her herbal kit and realizes that she does have just a little bit of shadowthorn. And she takes this black lichen, which is all powdered and dried, and mixes it in a cup with some of the water. And she's like, kind of, yeah. And puts together this potion. And she's like, Aerophor, drink this. And what she will have is says a character who drinks a Shadowthorn potion gains advantage on saving throws against poison for an hour.
Oh, yeah. So this is what we'll do. So if
she might be able to actually just draw that off. I'm sorry, I haven't had a chance to use that feature before.
Yeah.
Her lay on hands, I think she can. Sorry.
So one of the things I think you would do, Lily, you're not a stranger to treating wasp stings, and seeing that Aerophor was stung by a multitude of wasps. You dig up some grass and get to the earth underneath, and you get this wet mud, and you start making like a compress that you put across his wounds, and you do that at first, and that does help Aerophor. It kind of that warm, numbing feeling is replaced by a cool sensation as she applies these packs of mud. And then I would say that you would give him that potion, Carol, or that concoction that you made, that elixir, and that would, yes, you're definitely going to rub some dirt into that, Kyle. And
yes, he's definitely got mud involved in this. In fact, she's encouraging people to put mud on themselves to keep the wasps off.
Oh, the wasps are gone. You saw them; they flew off in a large angry cloud towards the east. But what it'll do mechanically, Aerophor, is it'll cut your poison time in half. So you're now only poisoned for 2 hours as you drink this potion, and this have been tended to by Lily. Badu and Wari, what are you doing while Lily is tending to Aerophor and Moira is kind of standing close by, overlooking her friend to make sure that he is going to be okay?
Badu is still all the way at the back, and he's now dropped his hand axe, and he's standing pretty still, and he calls out to them, "Are they gone?" He's not moving though.
Worry, as he calls out, would actually, since he's probably closest to the statue now, would probably be looking at what this statue is that these wasps made their home upon, especially since you said it was made of stone.
Yeah. So as you get closer, Wari, and you've kind of lit this torch ready, just in case there's some more of these wasps, what you see is the throne itself probably was empty. And that these wasps had built this great nest in the seat of this throne.
Where it would kind of sit there for an extra few seconds, inspect it, but not getting too close for the wasps. Just almost going to assume that there's not all of them left for the east.
Yeah. You don't see any flying around the nest. But if you want to look closer, you could give me if you want to study it more closely, not necessarily getting closer to it, I'll need an investigation roll.
Most certainly. I will take that 17 total.
Okay, yeah, that's good enough. What you would see is that there's no evidence that any wasps remain. That for whatever reason, and this behavior is kind of not typical to wasps, they seem to have fled this nest.
And you said we would think that would be odd?
Yeah, because typically wasps would protect their nest, and the closer you got to it, the more nasty they would get. But these did not. So it's very atypical behavior for these insects.
Let's see. All right. All right, then Worry would get a little closer to inspect the statue, and if he could, light the wasp nest on fire. See what remains after it's gone, and like once it starts deteriorating, he'd kind of use the torch to like push the remains off of this throne.
Yeah, so you take about a half an hour or so to do that, to light that nest on fire. What are the rest of you doing while Wari is burning this this nest?
Badu's taken a firm seat down at the foot of the hill, far away from the wasp's nest, and is waiting until the fire goes out before he does anything. But he's turned back to everyone, staring off in the distance at the storm as it starts to head westward. His knees kind of tucked up into his chest, and he doesn't like wasps.
Yeah. You're not certain, Badu, but when the wasp had attacked Arafor, it seemed the voices in your head grew louder, and you heard two words: fallen kings, before the whispers drift off to inaudibility.
So at least he's finally able to hear something out of them, but unfortunately it doesn't make any sense to him. So he would probably be spending this time then, again, far, far away from the wasp, but he would probably be spending this time kind of just mulling that over in his head. You know, all this time, the last thing that he remembers Barrow saying to him before the whispers started happening was pretty ominous, and then the whole deal before the troll in the fog. And he's trying to piece together the puzzle in his mind, but he knows that he's not the brightest crayon in the box. So he's taking his time with it, but it's really, the gears are just really turning in his head, trying to figure out what all this could mean. Like, is there any meaning to it at all, or is it just random nonsense?
Perfect. Lily and Arafor?
Lily would be. Oh, go ahead. All right, Lily would be spending this time just examining the ground around the mound to see, with her knowledge of nature, if there's anything that she can learn from it, anything unusual or evidence of, ways into the barrow, or if it's a barrow or what.
You would know that this is not a barrow. This is just a hill.
She would also be looking just in case there's herbs out there.
Yeah, you find none.
I wouldn't
on this
expect
hill.
really.
Yeah, it's just,
But she's always got her eyes
covered in
open,
grass.
just in case.
Yeah.
Yeah, Arafor is a little bit worried that the fire, and more in particular the smoke, is going to attract unwanted attention. So he's going to be keeping his eyes out as best as he can, using the hill as kind of a vantage point to just kind of keep scanning in a circle around the horizon, just to make sure that nothing's caught their eye as they go through this.
Yeah, so as the skies are slowly clearing, you see that this is probably one of the higher hills in this area, and it gives you good vantage of the surrounding land. You look probably off in the distance. You might catch some movement, but it's quite a ways away, and it doesn't appear to be moving closer to you. Black smoke does rise up from this throne as Wari. Initially, the torch just kind of licks at the wet outside, damp outside of this nest. But as you push it into the softer, drier inside, this nest goes up in this it's just engulfed by flame. And after about a good 30 minutes of burning, there's just a pile of ash sitting upon this throne. I mean, it's a pretty good sized pile, but a pile nonetheless.
Cool. And where he'll use that time to actually inspect the statue a little more, just for his own curiosity's sake, as he's very fond of fancy stonework. Can he tell maybe like when this was made and maybe what it's for?
Yeah. So as this nest burned, you expected it to be covering some statue, but you find that what it is just sitting in this. The throne is empty. By your best guess, you can see these ruins carved into the arms of this chair, and it just speaks of the great kings of Arnor, and other than that, it seems to be facing eastward.
Would Wari know of anything regarding that kind of stuff? Does these kind of thrones or statues or I want to call it effigies or whatever of kings and stuff like that have any significance for where they're facing or where they're placed or what hill they're on?
Yeah. Well, you could give me a lore roll if you'd like.
If that's something that Wari would say too, Arafor, that might be something that he might know as well. I'm not sure if he would or not.
Might be mentioning it. If you guys are wondering what the heck I'm doing for the last 30 minutes burning and inspecting the statue, I'd probably tell you.
Well, call me crazy, but I think Wari, he's not going to just see runes carved into the arms of this chair. He's going to be like mumbling them out loud, what they say, as he's kind of puzzling this stuff through. That's what my experience.
Yeah, so I imagine as he's kind of like just like speaking just in these like kind of mutters, Arafor would kind of catch something about Kings of Arnor or something like that, and his head would kind of perk up in that direction. And he would get up over and walk over to him, and kind of begin looking it over as well. And that's a 17 lore for me.
Oh, perfect. Same for me.
Yeah. No specific piece of lore stands out to you, speaking of a stone throne. But what both of you, probably around the same time as you kind of, maybe you guys are talking to one another, was placed there with purpose. What the purpose is still eluding you both. But some things that, let me just add a little bit to that, because you guys would already know this. You think that it's not chance that this throne is sitting upon one of the highest hills in this area of the Downs.
I was going to say, if it would make any difference, I'm sure at some part of examining this, Wari would have sat in it.
Okay, cool. So you clear the remains of the nest, wiping it clean, and you hop up. You got to basically hop up into this throne. If it was built for a man, it was a man of great height, probably at least Badu's size. So as you sit up in this throne, give me a wisdom save.
Oh, yes. It starts. 4.
Oh, man. Oh, man. You jump up in this seat and you look off. You hear this rumble of thunder, and it seems as though it's right above your head. As you look off eastward, your eyes are drawn far to the distance. The sky goes a blood red. You see red lightning streaking the sky, and you hear the guttural sounds of dark beasts and armies massing and moving westward. You suffer 3 shadow, Wari, as this vision racks you. The rest of you would see Wari go rigid, his eyes wide, his mouth agape, as he stares eastward.
Yeah, I imagine like the first thing that Airfor would do would be like look and follow his eyes, thinking that he saw something, and then realizing that he didn't, would like try to yank him off of the throne, just like grab one of his arms and pull.
Okay. How about the rest of you?
Badu's still sitting at the foot of the hill. So he
Yeah,
probably
so
doesn't
you don't-
notice most. 'Cause
You would
his
hear-
back is
You would probably hear the commotion.
yeah,
as
he might
there's
hear something
kind of
and
some
turn
gasp.
around,
Yeah.
but he can't even really see much. So he might stand up and maybe start walking up there, but he doesn't really know what's going on.
Perfect.
And Lily, I would imagine, would have some idea that there's something horrible going on with him, with her knowledge of just everything.
Well, yeah,
At any rate,
it's
she's
very
gonna call
clear to Lily and to everybody that something bad is happening to
Yeah.
Wari. What it is, you guys don't know. Like Aeroforce said, he looks to the east, and all he sees is distant Barrows and the mountains further along, and the gray skies above. And Moira, welcome, Moira. By the way, I hope you did well on your exam.
An exam, Moira says.
or her alter ego, Taylor. I hope you did well on your exam. What is Moira doing? I'm glad that everybody kind of brought you up to speed with what is happening in the Fellowship right now.
Yeah, I think Moira would be helping Arafor, maybe trying to pull Wari off, seeing him stuck like that.
Yeah. Arafor, after being stung by these wasps, you just see, even though he's been mended or tended to by Lily, and there's still these cakes of mud on all of the stings that he received. You see his skin is still very pale and kind of like a clammy look to it. So he's reaching weakly for Wari. So you would have advantage, Moira, as you try to pull Wari free of this throne, and Arafor's helping you.
Lily would be calling out his name in hopes of maybe somehow encouraging him to come back, to pay attention to us.
Yeah, it's the strangest thing, Wari, too, because as your eyes are locked on this scene, and it just shifts, and you see this armies of darkness rolling over Middle Earth. You hear the screams of the tortured and dying as they do so, but almost there's like that muted sound of other voices. They seem to be yelling your name, but it seems to be drowned out. You both tug at him, and he seems to be locked in this seat. Yes, it would be athletics. And you just, for whatever reason, something is holding him fast here.
I assume Wari would probably also be like muttering to himself, since he kind of was talking to Arafor around the same time about all of the ruins and stuff too.
What would you mutter?
I would probably be quick descriptions of what I'm seeing, like, you know, probably almost akin to Badu, like the voices that are inside his head, like darkness, and then like something unintelligible, army, red, marching, fields, you know, just you know, like fragments of sentences that if you put 2 or 3 words in between each of the word, it would make a complete sentence, but that would be all you could hear.
Yeah, and tears start to run down your cheeks into your beard, and then the vision ends. You feel breath rush back into your lungs. You hadn't even realized you had stopped breathing, and you feel strong hands grabbing your arms, trying to pull you from this throne. As your eyes come to full focus, Wari, and you see the vision above you, you catch one thing before Moira and Arafor pull you from this throne, and that's a distant Barrow. It's almost as if it is, your eyes are drawn to it, and then you're pulled from the throne, and you stumble to the ground.
I would, yeah, I would probably almost be like, pulled, like somebody who's almost like one of the people in real life who are just not paying attention to get pushed or shoved by somebody. Like they have like almost no control over their body. So I'm assuming Worry would actually get yanked off of this chair and not be, and would have to rely on other people to catch him or steady him before he tumbles to the ground.
Yeah, Arafor would immediately kind of rush over to lean down. What happened? And kind of like shake him to make sure that he's still conscious.
My marching armies and blood and oh my god, there was a war, and lots of red, lots of dark, lots of shadow, yeah, lots of shadow.
And it would creep, this feeling of dread would creep over you as Arafor asked you that, Worry, because the last thing you see before the vision faded and you were pulled from this seat was a great eye of fire hanging over the distance in the east.
Yeah, then that's probably all Worry would get out, and then he would see that he's shutting his eyes and like almost pushing his knuckles into his eyes to try to like get the image out of his head, but it's not working, and he's just trying and trying and trying.
Badu, you've made your way up this hill, and you see that Moira and Arafor are kneeling next to a heavily breathing Wari. You see sweat running down his face, mingling with tears. But you remember that other thing too. Oh, I'm sorry. You go, Badu.
Yeah, so he was probably coming up right behind this this stone chair, so he couldn't really see around it, being it was quite large. So he kind of comes up, and he basically, like, he's coming around the corner, and he just sees everything has gone to shit, and he immediately just rushes over and kneels down next to Wari and looks to Arafor and Moira, and he's just, what happened?
I'm not sure. He sat in the throne and then just went stiff, mumbling. Guess he saw something.
And Buddy would turn around
Pigeons.
and look at this. He would turn around and look at this throne, and just kind of look at it fearfully and inquisitively at the same time, trying to figure out like what possibly could have done something like that.
You remember another thing, Wari, another vision, or another thing you saw before you were taken from the throne. A distant barrow set alone from the others, and in front of it, you saw a large stone menhir.
Would that throne of would that Barrow have been directly east from where I was looking?
It would have. It's like how in a movie when they kind of stutter, focus something up close. That's kind of what it felt. It's like it was off in the distance, but then I was like, you almost had this focus where you like, or another good thing is those you ever been to like a historical monument and they have those things you drop the quarter in and you look through them and they're like binoculars or something. It's kind of like that. It's like you were looking through and all of a sudden this Barrow was brought closer to you.
It would help if I didn't mute myself when I started talking.
Yeah,
Worry would probably mention something about a burrow in some of his ramblings, but I don't think for the next, maybe 5 minutes or so that he'd be in his right state mind to make full-on sentences. But you would catch among some of the words about the army and the shadow and the eye and all that stuff that he would say Barrow as well.
Yeah, I think at the mention of I in particular, Arafor would kind of ice over for a little bit, out of fear. An eye. What kind of eye? Describe it to me. Kind of probably pressing Wari a little bit harder than he probably should at this point, but still.
Yeah.
I'm assuming it's the typical Lord of the Rings Sauron eye.
You worry. I'll let you describe it any way you want. It just make sure fire's involved.
Okay. Worry would describe like a serpentine type eye, a bead that started out ever so small in a sea of darkness that just instantly got bigger, like almost as if like Lionel said, that it just zoomed in so quickly, and all Worry could see after it zoomed in was the eye wreathed in fire and flames, just continuous rolling fire.
Yeah, and everybody in the party would probably see Arafor's face like sink even further than out of anything else that they've been through so far. That would probably shake him the most.
I think maybe Lily would have caught the reference to the barrow. And when Narafor's done with poor Worry, she's going to be... You saw a barrow? What did you see? And ask him to, if he can, share with them what he saw.
Just a barrow, an opening in a hill, just straight. Just sit in the chair, and that's all you can see. That's your mind goes right to it. It's there. It's under the hills, just there where the wasps went.
Do you think, Arafor, that's where we need to go? We haven't gotten much yet. Maybe this is somehow a guide.
It's possible. Stranger things have happened in stories, but
the eye was there too. It was in that direction. The burrow, the eye, the war, the shadow, everything was over there.
So is it all just wicked and evil?
It's just too many images all at once. I don't know. I don't know.
Lily kind of gives him a pat.
And that's the thing, Wari. As the minutes pass, your memory of the vision fades as well.
That's all. Even the eye, with the image of the eye actually fade as well.
Yes.
So I think after After a minute or two, he would mention that the details are getting hazy, but just follow the wasps. It's that direction. I can't see it anymore, really, but it's there. I saw it.
Yeah, give me an insight roll, Wari.
Total of 18.
Yeah. You feel something in it deep inside you feels drawn eastward.
We should head that way.
There's a distant rumble of thunder. You see the dark clouds above you starting to break, and the late afternoon sun, golden rays start to spread across the barrows around you.
We should get moving then. It's not wise in these sorts of areas, especially after lighting that on the nest. Doesn't look like anything's caught us, but you can't be too careful.
If anything, it's shelter, at least.
So you start heading eastward in the direction that you saw this barrow. Takes you several hours, and the sun is starting to sink in the distant western horizon, making the sky a mixture of red and purples streaking across the clouds. Lily, you know that the night will be clear. Stars and a full moon will greet you. And it's at that point that you approach this grand barrow, and standing before it is this great stone menhir, maybe 20, 25 feet tall and probably about 8 to 10 feet wide at its base. And it's positioned just in front of this barrow. There's no other barrows around this one.
Is it blocking or covering its entranceway in some shape or form, or just in front of it?
It's set in front of it. The barrow itself is probably 10, 15 feet behind it.
Well, then I'd probably be drawn to the menhir itself. I'm assuming that they're always placed there or constructed in some manner, and not just found, right?
Right. It was definitely set here by man.
Then I would,
this great barrow.
As we walk closer and see the barrow, I'd be drawn closer to the menhir itself, just to inspect it, take a look at it, and maybe find if there's any writing on it.
Mm-hmm. And everyone else?
Lily's going to just carefully look around to see if there's anything hidden or noticeable, anything disturbed maybe around the barrow or anything like that.
Yeah, it's the barrow, like many of the barrows, is covered in grass. You can see a large stone here or there peeking out. The grass, oddly though, no grass grows around this menhir for about 10 feet. It's just sand and stone. It looks almost as if someone had cleared it, which would be impossible because no one is caring for this.
Would there be any sign of the wasps?
You see no sign of wasp at all.
Okay.
Wari, as you draw close to this menhir, probably within a good dozen paces, you can see that carved into the face of this is running down along it is two parallel braided ropes carved into the stone itself. As you take steps closer, you can see that an image of a ship and a horn is carved into the face of this menhir as well. And between those two images is a name.
Could I read the name at all?
It's in an older, more ancient dialect of man. And is that a language you know?
I don't know if it's old enough, but I know Dalish and Dwarf, and I think Dalish is old, but I don't know how old.
Yeah, nope, it's not Dalish.
Okay.
So it's the runes are foreign to you.
So I would probably mention that to Arafor as soon as I see some type of horn. I would look over to him, and it's a drawing of a horn here. It's a writing. I can't read it.
A horn?
It's too old. And he nods to oh, sorry. He nods to Moira. Yeah, a horn.
That immediately gets your attention, Arafor and Moira. As you move closer to this menhir, standing just outside of this ring that surrounds it, you see that the runes that are carved into it, though ancient, are still just as clear as though they were cut into the stone a day before. The runes are ancient, but they're similar to the language you speak, Western. The name is Maldred, son of Widmund.
Moira kind of turns the name over. Mount. I wish Rajith were here. He would know more.
You say that.
To carve a symbol of a...
Oh, sorry. Go, Jeff.
I was just going to say, there's a carving of a horn, though, into the statue. That has to be a good sign, right?
As you make that comment, Moira, probably more to yourself than to anyone else, you almost hear this whisper in your mind, the voice of Orodrith, and it just simply says, "Trust your heart," and then it fades.
She looks at Arafor, watching for any reaction to see if he heard it. And as he instead just studies the runes, she smiles softly to herself. This must be right. It's here. I know it's here.
Yes, as you study the ship and the horn that are also carved in here, the ship itself is in the shape of a swan. You would remember that, Moira, as one of the many days that you traveled together, just the two of you, on your journey to Bree. Arodrith had gone on and spoke of the swan ships of Dol Amroth and of the great princes of that land. How proud they were as accomplished seamen and knights.
Is there a door?
Yes. As you move around this menhir, you can see a great stone door has been set at the front of this barrow. And actually, I shouldn't say stone door because that gives the impression of like hinges and a handle. It's like if you look at any ancient barrow or internment, they would roll a large stone in front of the entrance. And that's what it is. It's a large stone has been rolled in front. And it is
I think
devoid.
Arafor would look over to. Oh, go
I was
ahead.
just to say it's devoid of any markings.
Yeah, I think Arafor would look over to Moira and he would do something that he very, very rarely does, and he would crack a smile.
Love it.
And just kind of nod over to the stone.
Yeah, you're feeling much better now, Arafor. It's taken you quite some time to cover the distance from the throne to this barrow, and in that time, you're able to walk out, and that queasy weakness that you felt from the poison is now faded away. You're no longer suffering from poison. Enough time has passed. So this great stone stands before you, and at least two of your fellowship believe that this may very well be the barrow you seek. Everything seems to point that this is some great hero, some great man from the lands to the south, gone north to fight against the darkness. What do you guys want to do?
Rory would probably be waiting on and watching Arafor and Moira, as the reason that Badu and I joined a little bit was to help them find this horn. So kind of watching their reactions and waiting for a cue from them.
And a cue you would definitely get because, like I had described earlier, the mood has been very dark since Thomas's death, like this dark cloud that has hung over your fellowship since. But you would see, if even just for the briefest of moments, that cloud lifted from both Arafor and Moira as they move around this menhir closer to the door.
Yeah, Arafor would kind of turn back to everybody, kind of approaching towards the stone. Well, what are we waiting for? And kind of nodding to Wari and Badu, but probably Badu in particular. Want to give me a hand with this?
Be careful. There may be something else in there too.
And as you say that, Arafor, the last lights of the sun has drifted away. In your excitement, you hadn't even realized. And off in the distance, you see the great round orb of the moon. It just kind of washes the land around you in a silvery glow. So you guys wish to open this door?
Yeah, if Arafor is still looking for help for it, Badu would certainly step up and hop on that.
And Lily would get her bow ready and
Perfect.
stand back a little just in case.
Yeah, just give me a strength roll, and you would have advantage, Badu. I believe you. I don't know who has the higher strength, but
I do.
The other one
Probably
can assist
him.
the other. Yeah.
Is it just a flat strength or an athletics?
No, athletics.
Athletics would be
Yeah, sorry.
a total 21.
Yeah. So it's at first you think that you're not going to be able to move this great stone. It's at least the height of Arafor, 6 feet across and almost perfectly circular. It had been cut from stone, and probably almost a foot and a half thick. And just when you think it's not going to budge, it starts to slowly creak as you push it open from the front of this barrow. And it reveals a dark opening before you. The smell of stale, moist air assails you both.
Yeah, and I imagine he probably starts off just pushing it from high up, like just trying to just casually push it out of the way, and then he realizes it's pretty set into the dirt, so he gets lower and kind of grabs it from the bottom and just heaves his arms, just flexing as he pulls and starts to move this thing out of its rut, and then he starts to shove it, putting his whole body into it. And as he does so, that air hits him, and his face kind of turns to the rest of the group with this just like this just offended odor just hitting his nostrils. Oh, jeez. And he continues to just push the stone out of the way, at least enough for him to walk through casually.
Yeah. And as you do so, Badu, with the aid of Arafor, you reveal this this barrow. One word goes through your mind. Yes. And then it fades, and we will take a break on that. Take a break for 5 or so minutes, and we'll pick back up. Yeah, we're just waiting for Kyle. When Kyle gets back, we'll get started. Perfect. Let's get going. So the entrance to this barrow now lays open to your fellowship, like a large gaping black maw. The air is, like I said, is like stale. It smells like a mixture of it just smells you know that smell of damp, like after a rain, much like you guys have been smelling after the thunderstorm, such as the smell that comes from this barrow. There's a yes, the smell of Seattle, Carol. And there's this small stone not platform, but landing just beyond the doorway that leads deeper into this this barrel.
Do you have a torch, Worry?
Do I actually have any left? Yes, I do. So instinctually, Worry would at that command just pull one out for her, knowing that he really doesn't need one himself, but he'll help it for everybody else as well.
I would imagine that you guys have a pretty good supply of torches. You guys knew that you would be searching barrows for this horn, so you would have brought a bundle of torches along with you. How many torches do you want to light?
I think Lily's going to want one.
Okay. So Lily,
I don't know about anybody else, but she can't really see without one.
Yeah, Badu's done the whole darkness in the cave thing, and it did not work out so well. So he's I know he's standing more towards the front, kind of near the entrance, and he would definitely whip one out and light it up so that he can see in, and he would kind of just while everyone's getting set up and ready to go, he would be kind of like peering through, kind of leaning his light into the hallway a little bit, see kind of what's what.
Yeah. So as you flash a torch in there, you can see the walls of this entrance are just slick with moisture. The torch kind of sputters and a bit as the damp, cold air from the barrow hits it, and then it kind of like balances itself. And you can see that beyond like this 8-foot landing of stone, there is it opens to a chamber below. As you move to the edge of this landing and look down, there's no stair, no ramp that leads down into the chamber, which is probably about 10 feet down. Whatever landing or whatever was here was probably temporary and was withdrawn when the dead were interned.
Yeah, so he would probably stand near the edge then and just be looking down and wait for everybody else to catch up, and he would just kind of point it out to anybody, as soon as they got there, so we could figure out a plan of attack.
Yeah. So it opens up into this chamber. It's roughly 25 feet across and maybe twice as much deep. You can see it's about, and like I said, it's about 10 feet down to the floor. The floor itself seems to be of marble. Probably at one point it was polished, and the sides and ceiling of this barrow is large stone slabs of cut stone. You see moldy tapestries hanging from the walls, and from where your vantage point, you can't see the far end of this tomb, but you see that in the center of this tomb is a statue of a man, and on either side along the walls are two sarcophagi, and you see some iron braziers in the corner and between the two sarcophagi on either side.
Yeah, so he would wait for everybody to kind of gather up and look to Arafor and then to the rest of everybody else, and just be and basically just ask if they're ready to descend this. And as soon as they gave the inclination that they were, he would hop down and then help everyone else get down into it, because 10 feet for him is a lot less formidable than maybe for Lily.
He could probably stand on the floor and reach up and grab Lily.
That's the plan.
Lifts her down like a little kid.
Yep.
I love it.
Drops
Love
her.
it.
I need
Lily doesn't mind.
So it doesn't take much time for you guys to drop down. And just remind me again who has the torches. I know Badu has one. Lily, you have one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Although,
no one
I
else.
wonder if there's somewhere. Is there somewhere she could set it? Like anything it would hold it up?
There's iron braziers in the corners. So on the closer corners to where you drop down, there's two iron braziers. You could potentially light them if there's anything still inside them, and then there's on either wall running along this tomb, there are two sarcophagi, and in between each of these two, there's two more iron braziers. They're probably used at some point to light this chamber.
I think Lily would like to try to light them so that she doesn't have to haul a torch around in there.
Yep. The air is damp, and like I said, it just smells musty in this tomb. But you're surprised as you dip a torch into the brazier on the left, and it kind of coughs and sputters a bit, but the charcoal and peat in this brazier lights and slowly takes on flame, casting a warm orange glow across that corner of the tomb.
I think barring anything happening, Lily would go and try to light them all and then put her torch out.
Yeah, so you go and light the other one, and then you see Lily kind of just trot off and light the other two. And as you do that, Lily, you can see further into this chamber. At the center, probably the center of this room, there's a statue of a man. It probably stands 9 or 10 feet tall with its base. It's a man in a scaled mailed coat, and a long beard flows down, and a chiseled and cut face is there. There's a helmet, nasal helm tucked under one arm, and a shield in the other. On the shield, you see a swan and horn.
She would encourage everyone to come over.
And as you do that and you peek past this statue, Lily, you see that there's another sarcophagus. This one a bit bigger than the other four. At the far end of the room, two more iron braziers in either corner. This final sarcophagus is up on a slight raised platform of about 6 to 8 inches, and you can see that some sort of likeness has been carved into the top of that sarcophagus, whereas the other four are made bare, just plain stone flat tops.
Yeah, Lily's going to kind of point at that, but She's not going to go over to that one
Perfect.
because she's going to be a little careful about things. Maybe even find a place where she's partially concealed just in case.
Yeah, I'm curious. So that's taking you a few minutes, Lily. I'm curious what everybody else is doing while Lily is kind of trotting around, lighting up these 4 iron braziers.
I think Moira is moving in, and as the light spreads, Moira is there at the edge of it, looking for indications, looking for signs, carvings of the horn, if it's on a tapestry, any inkling of where it might be. Yeah, we did not bring the horse down the 10-foot drop.
Yeah, I didn't think you would, but I just wanted to be clear. So yeah, all of these walls are just lined with these tapestries, and as you kind of just wander along, as Lily lights these braziers, Moira, you see that they depict ages long past, great fleets of swan ships. Great ships of swan ships on their sails, men in mail, bright and shining. You see them, several of them depict fights, combats, battles long since done. And out behind the decorated sarcophagus, you see this great tapestry. Many of them now molded and having that musty smell of something that's not kept dry. But that one depicts this great. It's like a funeral scene, and you would assume it's of the hero that is interned here.
Worry himself would be inspecting the sarcophagi as best he can, or maybe looking for traps, so to say, just something that would prevent grave robbers from taking some of their stuff or inspecting things.
Okay. And Badu and Arafor?
I think Arafor is probably drawn to this the statue of this hero, the statue itself. And he would probably wander up to it as the different braziers are being lit, and start just kind of looking it over.
Yep. And Badu?
This is just the one room, right?
You see no other entrances, no other doorways, no other tunnels.
Is he hearing anything, is he getting any extra voices
Nope.
other than the normal? All right, cool.
You heard that one yes.
Right.
Across your mind, and then once you stepped into the entryway of this barrow, it's like all the whispers stopped. The first time in weeks.
Yeah, it's a welcome silence. So he almost dismisses the ominous nature of the last one he heard, just because he's finally relieved from the rest of it, and he'll probably being able to almost think clearly for once, he's thinking that he wants to kind of scan the walls and check for maybe any secret doors, or maybe anything that might maybe lead to another part. So because everyone seems to be kind of looking for their own thing here, he figures that he might look and see if there's anywhere if this room might lead to anything else.
Perfect. Arafor, you approach this statue, just drawn to this almost lifelike carving of a man, probably long since dead. Lily is standing next to you. She's peering past it at the back section of this tomb, and you noticed carved into the base of this statue is the name Maldred, son of Widman. And you know that you look upon the likeness of this long gone hero. Yeah, and Wari, if you could give me an investigation check as well, for what you're doing, and we'll jump to that. So, Arafor, you're looking upon the likeness of this great man of the South. Oh, Jeff, if you're talking, I can't hear you.
Ah, I did the old double mute.
Yeah, I've done that before too. It happens.
Yeah, so I think Airfor couldn't help but be drawn to kind of the statue, and his thoughts kind of drift back to his conversation with Goldberry, and then like the incident with the troll, and kind of his own past that he's figuring out. And now he's looking upon this man, this kind of great historical man, this hero. And he can't help but think about what like that person's history must have been like for him to have not one but two great statues in this place of honor in the Barrows, and he can't help but kind of think about the implications of that and kind of wonder who this person must have been.
Lily, you're standing by Arafor, and you see this ranger just staring up reverently at the face of this this hero. And we jump over to Wari. Wari, you're kind of running your hands along these sarcophagi, checking out their workmanship, looking for anything that might be anything to indicate that they have been trapped against anyone that would think to rob them. The men that are buried within. The workmanship is spectacular, being a dwarf and skilled in the way of stone lore. These sarcophagi, though not extravagantly bedecked as the other, still have the names of the man interred inside carved upon the face, all of which has a shield, and everyone has the emblem of a swan upon it.
Nice. As Wari runs his hands along this magnificent stonework, he'd probably kind of just mention it casually to somebody, just like a passing hobby. Just, wow, you don't see sarcophagi like this anymore.
I love it. And nearby you see Badu. He's kind of pulling back these tapestries and peering behind them. It just appears to be the stone, these large stone slabs that were set in place to make the walls and to hold this great roof that kind of vaults ahead of above you, probably about 20, 25 feet. And you find nothing, Badu, as you search alongside your companion, Wari. Moira, you move past Arafor as he's looking at this statue, and you see beyond this great tapestry hanging behind the sarcophagi that shows the last moments of this great knight that is laid to rest here, Maldred.
Does he have a horn in the tapestry?
He does. It's resting across his chest with his broadsword, a shield across his legs, as men carry him on a a pallet. You see 6 knights dressed in their fine mail as they walk among these others. Many men bowing in reverence to this knight, this great lord.
She'll approach his sarcophagus. Is that the one Wari is standing next to?
No, Wari is further back, examining the others. You see him kind of just deftly kind of going along, like with skilled hands, like he knows what he's doing. as you kind of peer over your shoulder and you see Arafor staring at this statue, Lily kind of looking at Arafor, then kind of looking towards you, and Badu is peeking behind these wall hangings along the wall. But you would see Moira as you approach closer. You're probably maybe 15 feet away. That the similar likeness of the man that's being carried during his funeral is carved upon the top of the sarcophagus. You see that same horn, its likeness carved there.
She reaches out and her fingers push some of the dust off the horn as where it's carved.
Mm. You would expect the dust to be dry. This tomb having not been touched in centuries, but it's actually moist, like a fine silt. If you've ever been to the beach and you feel that really fine sand, that's what it feels like. It's this damp, almost fine silt that covers the sarcophagus. But you wipe it across, and you see this polished marble below, and you see that this sarcophagus, unlike the stone of the others, was carved from marble.
Lily, Arafor. I believe I found it. I believe it's inside here.
Lily will definitely come over very curious as to what's there and stand next to Moira and look at the coffin. I believe you're right. Arafor.
Arafor would come up along the other side of Moira and just kind of is almost hesitant to speak with just the anticipation of it all. Like his breath is slow and still. He just kind of gives a nod, almost nervously, anxiously, but just waits for her to move.
Moira will. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, as they're waiting, Lily's going to pull out the swan-handled dagger that Oradreth had given her, and just kind of hold it up and look at the swan on that, and the swans in all the images. Just thinking of Oradreth, really.
Yeah, Moira will put her hands against the edge of the lid and give it a push, just testing to see if it's easy to move.
Yeah, give me an athletics.
That's 19.
Yeah, you're surprised. This heavy marble top is so, but you shift it and it slides easily under your hand. There's that as air kind of gets into this thing, and there's that smell of death, ancient decay. Not a terrible smell like the smell of death in battle, but just of the ancient dead.
Or he's probably creeping up closer to Moira after she's opening the coffin just to get a peek inside.
Yep. So Moira, you continue to push this top over, and Lily lifts a torch so that you can peer inside, and you catch the glint of mail, the scaled mail that is on the statue behind you, and you also see the faded tarnish edge of a horn, the cup of a horn. I don't know if that's the right name for the end of the horn where the sound comes out, but I'm going to call it that. But you can see that it's worked along the edge of this horn in some type of bronze. as you see it resting upon the chest of this now very much decayed and very dried bone warrior. Okay, bell. Thank you, Jeff. So the bell of this horn.
She looks to her left and right at Lily and Arafor, and holding her breath, she reaches down to touch the horn.
Yep. You reach down into the sarcophagus, and your fingers gently touch the cool metal at the bell of this horn. You can feel a little bit of dust that is upon it. Yeah, you're touching this horn.
She'll grasp it and pick it up, pull it out of the sarcophagus.
You pull this horn free, Moira. What's going through your mind at this moment? You look, and this horn is the exact likeness as the horn in the effigy of the knight on the top of this sarcophagus, the one that is in the tapestry in front of you, and even a horn that, and I don't think I put it in the description, but is hanging at his waist in the statue.
There's a sense of completion. That after this time, finally they found it. The treasure. The thing which Aradrith had been searching for.
Arafor, you see Moira reach into this sarcophagus, and she pulls forth this horn. It's of the purest white, like ivory, and it's etched with this bronze, both at the bell and at the, help me, Jeff, what is it called, the piece you blow into?
The mouthpiece.
Well, that's really technical. The mouthpiece as well is this much like a trumpet has this piece, this mouthpiece. This thing has this mouthpiece of bronze, and she turns and face you. I almost said face you. What are the rest of you doing, or what are you doing for that matter, Arafor, as you see this? Let's do that first.
Yeah, like I think Arafor's eyes are just like completely wide. Like from the moment that the lid moves, like all the way until now, it's just like this complete shocked expression. Like it's actually here and we actually have it, and it's like just so much for him right now. Like I think he would kind of just put a hand on Moira's shoulder excitedly, and just kind of like as he's looking, just say, "We've done it.
Oh, you cut out at the end.
We actually found it."
Sorry, Jeff, you cut out at the end. I missed the last part.
Yeah, he would just kind of putting a hand on Moira's shoulder, would just kind of almost stammering, would just say, "We've done it. We actually found it."
There's almost a nervous laugh from Moira.
Lily looks at both of them and just gives basically a great big smile, and she's like, "We did find it, didn't we?" And right about then her tummy rumbles. She looks down, "Oh, hush. We have it."
This horn that you hold in your hands, Moira, is covered in dust. With the exception of that where you ran your fingers across it when you reached in to touch it. The bronze is tarnished with just the passage of time, but you can see the splendor that was once this horn ages past.
What do we do next?
A look of, I guess confusion's not quite the right word, but it's the closest, would kind of come over Aerofor's face. Like, this has been their task for so long now, for like I think more than a month at this point. Like the idea of like what's next never even occurred to him. So he like doesn't even like he can't even bring an answer. He's just kind of like is so shocked that they have it that like the idea of what now is almost a foreign concept.
Lily's practicality kind of shows up, and she's, I think we'd best hide it away and get in your pack or something and get out of here. I don't want to stay in these downs any longer than we have to. Will you take it back to Oradreth's brother?
Just as this is all kind of happening, and they pull out this horn, Badu was kind of, still looking around the walls, kind of scanning. At this point, anything and everything has happened, and anything and then everything can happen. So they pull this out, and they're talking amongst themselves, and his eyes they narrow, and he looks suspiciously about the room. If this was so important and special, I can't he can't imagine just putting it in the Barrow Downs is enough to protect it. And for all that they've been going through, everything going wrong that could, he's suspicious of something to be so easy. So as they're discussing what to do, now that they have this, he's going to kind of make his way over to the exit and kind of leap up and just pull himself up just enough so he can see out the exit, just to see kind of what's going on outside, make sure that there's nothing, that there's nothing coming or any activity outside.
Yeah. So just give me a quick athletics check for that. And Wari, what are you doing?
That's a 24. So
perfect. Yeah, you easily pull yourself up, and you're up on the landing now, standing there. And you had a torch as well, sir?
Yeah, he probably would have. Still had it on him, or at least lit one by the brazier near the entrance, just as he kind of hopped up there real quick.
Yeah. Yeah, and you could easily reach up. You could probably easily reach up, set it up there before you pulled yourself up. And Wari, what are you doing?
Wari would get a little like smile on his face as they're like lifting up the horn and looking at this like immaculate like piece of art almost. And he would be wondering what else is in this coffin, and he'd be looking in there himself. And if there was nothing in there, he'd probably move on to the next one to see what else is in the next one.
Oh, you're starting to look in the other ones.
It all depends on the timing, but yeah, like so. First, I'd like look in that one.
Perfect. Yeah.
And then
so, which one would you look at? So, there's two sarcophagi on either side of the wall that kind of run along this. So there's two closest to the entrance, and there's two like that are a little bit further along, probably spaced about 8 feet apart. Which one would you do first?
Well, is there anything else in this other one?
Well, give me a athletics check to move the lid.
I mean, the one that Moira already looked into.
Oh, okay. You want to look in that one? Okay.
That's I would have been with her and just like looking to see what else was in there too.
So if you were to look at the top, the cover, it's mirrored inside this sarcophagus, with the exception of the man that is pictured on the front has now decayed, and now it's just brittle bones left inside a collapsed suit of scaled armor, a broadsword. There was a horn there, and a shield down by his feet.
But nothing else of small trinkety value, like just.
You can give me an investigation to do that.
Yeah, that's not very good. 11.
Yeah, that's good enough. You see that there are some. There's a pouch. It's now rotten. and spilling out from it is, a few coin and some gem. Probably had some special meaning to this lord. You also see 3 rings on his skeletal fingers that are resting across his chest. One of those rings has a sigil carved into it. That one is on a pinky, and there's 2 others, one on each hand on the ring fingers. And both of these rings are bedecked with a gem or a gemstone.
Would we notice him poking around the other things since we're all right there?
I think it's probably pretty reasonable to think. Well, I would say Arafor and Moira probably not so much because they're kind of, and they can challenge me on that. I'm not, if they'd like, but I'm just thinking they're really looking at this horn that they've searched so long and hard for. So yeah, Lily, you would probably notice that. Badu, you hear the sound of Badu, the scraping as Badu's kind of pulling himself up at the far end of this chamber.
Lily's like, Worry, I think you'd best leave those things alone. This has been too easy.
Now, there's 2 other.
They might be trapped.
Did you guys like the 2 other iron braziers that are in this far corner of the chamber? Or are those still unlit?
It was my intention to light them all.
Yeah, so you would have lit them all. Maybe that's just at the time when Moira is pushing this lid far enough so she can get inside. Moira, you have this horn in your hands. You can just feel the delicate working of the metal. As you turn the horn, your breath catches in your throat. You see this fine crack that runs along the full length of this horn. It's like spidery and dark.
Oh. Oh. Oh no.
Therefore, you don't see what Moira sees.
What's the matter?
She holds the horn towards him and traces her fingers. Look, it's cracked.
As you trace your finger along the crack, Moira, the horn begins to crumble in your hand. There's a metallic ring on the marble floor as the mouthpiece of the horn falls. There's still a bit of horn attached to it. And the sound reverberates through the chamber. You're holding just the bell and the workings and the bronzed etched metal and a bit of jagged horn.
Moira falls to her knees as it crumbles in her hands. No. No, no. We've come so far. She just stares at her hands that are now empty.
Yeah, and in front of you, across this marble floor, these shattered pieces of this horn.
Arafor is going to kneel down next to her, kind of putting a hand on her shoulder. Like, the words would come out apprehensively. Arafor doesn't quite believe them, but he would say them anyways. It's okay. We found it, at least. They'll still be glad to know that we've been able to find it.
But I can't. It's pointless.
Hey, we did what we swore we would do. We told Oradrith we would find it, and we did. No one could have known that it was in this condition.
As Moira kneels there, a few tears begin to trace streaks down her cheeks. And she's just overwhelmed by the futility of it.
Perhaps if we can keep enough of the pieces, maybe somebody can repair it or something. And like Arafor is like saying all these words, but like they're hollow. Like he's saying them because he feels like he has to say something, but he knows that it's probably no use.
Hmm. Wari, you're kind of rifling in this this sarcophagus. This while this is all playing out behind you, and give me a perception roll.
23.
You're as you're pulling these rings off this dead knight's fingers, your eyes drift to the tapestry behind on the wall. You see this retinue carrying this dead knight, and as you look at the tail end of this tapestry, you see that they're also carrying several chests. This lord's wealth. Your eyes kind of dart around this room. Nowhere are these chests to be seen. You hear the sounds of metal hitting the floor. It reverberates through the room, and it brings your attention back, Wari. Even you, Badu, on the far landing, you're kind of looking outside. You see nothing, but then you hear this metallic thing, and it brings your head around. You see Moira fall to the marble floor. Give me a Wari. Give me a. I'm trying to think. Do you have treasure? What is it? It's not like a treasure lore or something like that.
Yes, I have both. I have treasure lore and lore of the lost.
Yeah, you can use which. You could give me a roll on either one of those. I'll let you decide.
So treasure lore just says that you tell me 3 pieces of info about treasure or obstacles. And then lore of the lost, I just know lore about new region, ruin, or item and where you can find info.
So treasure lore, I think, is the most appropriate.
Yeah. Okay. Do you need me to roll for anything for that?
Yes, sir.
All right. What am I rolling? Just lore in general?
Yeah.
Total of 14.
Okay. So you would know that when lords and great knights were interred, much of their wealth would be interred with them. You don't see that here.
Would that be curious enough to me to think like Badu would, that it's hidden somewhere in here, or that
Yes.
You
would think that probably that's what happened to deter robbers. They would have hidden the wealth in some sort of secret cache.
Then Wari, kind of seeing Arafor and Moira kind of I won't say distracted, but like messing with the horn still, he would probably head over toward Badu and help him look.
All right. So Wari says nothing. He just moves past you and starts tapping at the walls behind these. You see him disappear behind one of these moldy tapestries, and you just hear tap, 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 tap. What are the rest of you doing?
Well, like I said, Lily was like warning Corey that there may be traps, there may be, we're not really here to be grave robbers or to take things that don't belong to them.
Yeah, I don't know that you noticed Wari squirrel these little bits of precious items
you told
away.
me that I would have perceived that he was doing it.
Yeah, you would have saw him digging around inside the sarcophagus, but you
Well,
can
that's
give
what she
me
would have been
you
talking
can
about.
give me he can give me a sleight of hand, and you can oppose it with your perception
All
to see
right.
if you actually see him snag the rings and tuck them away.
17 for me.
So you would oppose that.
18.
Yeah.
Aw,
So you
man.
didn't see anything. You think, he kind of I guess Wari kind of gives you one of these. He kind of pulls his hands out and he kind of gives you one of these innocent looks, like, "Come on, like you think I would do that?" And you don't see any rings or anything, no other signs of wealth. And he moves off to start tapping at the walls. That was awesome. Oh, Wari, by the way, I need you to give me a wisdom roll. Don't forget before the session ends tonight. Wisdom saving throw.
Oh, Jesus. All right. I can give it to you now if you want a total of 5.
Sure. Total of 5. Yep. You're going to take shadow, good sir. And let me see. Yeah, Wari, how much shadow do you have now?
I have a total of 11.
Yeah, and now you have a total of 12.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say I do have that trait, thief, or shadow of my pocket, which means all thief misdeeds are reduced.
Oh, that's good. So that's why you would have the 12 instead of the 13.
Perfect.
Does it reduce
doing well.
Does it reduce it by half?
No, it just says 1 instead of 3.
Okay, perfect. And so yeah, Moira, you begin to question whether this is the true horn. It looks brittle and thin to you, though it has the likeness of the horn that Aradrith had described to you. Something doesn't seem right. It's kind of one of those things where you have this deep despair, and then there's that bright glimmer of hope. And you remember the words you heard whispered in your mind in the likeness of Aradrith's voice.
Moira sniffles a bit and wipes her face. And she looks at Arafor, her brow furrowed. I cannot believe this was the true horn. I cannot believe it. We've not come all this way for nothing.
Arafor would just kind of give her that look, of just like, come on, look, I know this must be frustrating for you, but sometimes it's just the way things happen. I'm sorry.
No. Don't patronize me, Arafor. Yes, sometimes things happen. Horrible things have happened. But not this time. Trust me.
Well, then I guess we should find it then. And like Arafor like says it, it'd be pretty easy to tell that like he's doing this more as like an attempt to comfort, not out of like actual belief that they're gonna find anything more than they already have.
Lily, you see your friends going through this turmoil right now. What's Lily doing? She's been awful quiet this time.
Lily's just been sort of sitting there watching them, trying to think, is this the real one? Is this not the real one? And her mind's just kind of whirling in this.
And unfortunately,
trying to-
hobbits don't know much about ancient horns of great power.
She has a certain amount of lore. Would that be useful?
No. No, because you've lived a pretty secluded life as a hobbit, so your lore would really be limited to your surrounds rather than.
I would think, yeah, more of my herbalism and the things that I've studied like that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I was just.
But I mean, I would imagine when you hear Moira say that and Arafor say, "Well, we'll find it," you're probably start darting around this chamber as well, looking like where would it be?
Yes, yeah. She thinks that it really couldn't be the horn because it has to be a magical item and it wouldn't just break. Not from age, although she's concerned that maybe Shadow touched it somewhere.
It was legend. Yeah, it was when a Roderick spoke of it, it was a horn of power.
Yeah.
It had power over men and could give men victory in battle. So that would seem like a horn that would carry with it great magic.
Just common sense says those things don't just fall apart, you know?
Yeah, not something that would decay over time like this horn appears to have done. Moira, whoops, sorry.
I think Lily would like to examine the statue.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah. So you see Lily kind of just trot off and walk over to the statue. What specifically are you looking for, Lily?
Any kind of clue that would tell them anything about where the horn might be or anything like that.
Give me an investigation roll.
Maybe 18.
Okay. All right. So your eyes kind of trail along this statue, and it looks like this was once this great knight. One thing that stands out is he has one of his arms has this helm tucked underneath it. The other hand is resting across the top rim of this shield that is at his side. But what stands out to you is one finger, the index finger on that hand, is pointed down, whereas the others are curled to the edge of the shield.
So she's going to call Arafor and Moira over. Look at this. That seems unusual. Worry, come and look at this.
You hear tap, tap, tap behind one of the tapestries.
Worry, come over here.
Worry would probably head over there.
Because it looks like he's pointing down. Can you find anything in the stonework?
A statue is pointing down?
Well, see, his other fingers are all curled around the shield, but that one's pointing down.
Does it look odd to me?
It does look odd. It seems out of place. At first inspection, not so much, but now as Lily points it out to you, you're kind of like, yeah, that does kind of look out of place. You, Arafor, if you approach, would have that same kind of reaction with Lily saying that. You hadn't really noticed it before, having spent more time looking at the other workings of this statue. But now you notice that that one finger is pointing downward.
All right, then Worry would look around with Lily and inspect everything. Maybe even like poke at the finger, pull at it too.
Yeah, nothing. It's stone. Does not move.
Perhaps something is buried.
Maybe under the statue?
Or at the base of it, at the least.
Yeah.
The minute they say that, Moira, you think of your own kin, and oftentimes their wealth they would bury for safety, so that it could not be so easily taken. Maybe.
All right. Worry would look around for Badu as well, as they were all like going over all this kind of stuff and be like, "Where's really the one guy that can lift it is gone?"
Yeah, where is Badu anyway?
And upon hearing his name, he kind of like leans down and pokes his head down through the little hole, and he says, "Oh, I'm up here keeping watch."
Yeah, it's not actually a hole. The landing actually kind of it opens to this large chamber, so you could actually stand. You wouldn't have to duck or anything.
Oh yeah, so then he would kind of turn around and just make his presence, and be like, "Oh, I'm up here."
Yeah, you see everybody else around this statue, Badu.
Yeah, and I imagine that they're all like looking at him, and he just looks troubled and confused. Like he's been staring outside for the last 10 minutes, so he's completely lost on everything that's just happened. And the horn falling apart, and now everyone looking for this. So he's just looking at him, and he just kind of cocks his head. He's like, "Whoa."
Moira looks over at Worry. Says, in Rohan, sometimes the wealth of someone is buried, but so that anyone who might seek it is not so easily rewarded for their troubles. And I'm stronger than I look. I can help move that.
Or he kind of like smiles impressed and like, makes sense. All right. And Worry would kind of back away so that I'm assuming she and maybe Arafor or even Badu can get down at the statue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
if you want to try,
hand to Moira.
Yeah, if you guys are going to want to try to move the statue, you can, Moira, you can do an athletics with advantage because Air Force helping you. Holy, wow, 24. There's that sound of grating of stone on stone or stone on marble as you slowly slide this statue aside. And as you do, Lily and Wari, you see it slowly reveals a circular trap door below. It's of worked stone, and there's an inset in it is a bronze ring. And you see a hinge at the other side, also of bronze. But the door itself is probably 3 feet across, and it's, like I said, circular.
Oh, wow. This looks promising.
Worry
She backs up a few feet to just, she's not going down there.
Worry would
this looks promising. I'm going to run the other way.
Worry would smile and look up at Moira and be like, all right, good for your kin. It's a hobbit size though.
It's a pretty good sized door.
Well, it's 3 feet around, so yeah. That's a lot of space.
I think everyone but Badu would fit down there, actually.
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear the 3 feet. I thought you said a foot around. My bad.
No. Those chests look pretty big in the tapestry, so they would need a rather big opening. You're thinking, Wari. It's the first thing Wari thinks. This looks promising.
Yeah, it does. Do Moira and Arafor have to hold the statue in place to move it?
No, they slid it right aside. The stonework was actually pretty well done. It's only slightly depressed from the floor, so they're able to slide this statue right clear off to the side.
All right, then Worry would stay back and just let them continue their work if they're gonna this may be just as stuck.
Yeah, Arafor will just kind of look down at the trapdoor. Perhaps I was too soon to doubt. Maybe there still is hope. And he wouldn't even hesitate. Like all the apprehension that the others have shown, he would show none of it and would just immediately bend down to try to open it.
Yeah, it kind of resists you for a second, and you just put a second hand on there, and you kind of do one of those squats, and you just lift and pull the door, this trap door back, and there's kind of that grating of stone and the rubbing of the metal. The hinge is tarnished, so it kind of what's the word that I'm looking for? Screeches a bit as you pull it back. And it reveals an opening below. And then your hearts sink. 6 inches below this opening, you see water. Whatever chamber lies below this this upper chamber appears to have flooded.
Well, I suppose we'll have to swim.
Swim? I guess I've done some
Without
swimming.
even waiting, Arafor starts to take off his cloak and his pack and unhook his weapons from his belt.
Yeah.
And all of that.
Yeah, it takes Moira a bit longer because she's got to take off the chain shirt as well as her other stuff.
So the two of you start doing that. Wari, Lily, and Badu, what are you doing?
Lily's torn. She's actually done quite a bit of swimming with her, with Dirk, when they were kids. And she's very curious, but on the other hand, she really doesn't know what good she's going to be if she goes down there.
But one other thing is you pass a torch across this opening, this torch that you carry, Lily. You could see the glint of some sort of metal reflecting below.
That's enough to really pique her curiosity, which is always a little strong anyway. So she takes off her cloak and sets her pack down and prepares to dive in, like sticking the torch to light as much of the hole as she can. And she goes in and dives in to see what the glint of metal was.
Did you just say you dove in?
Well, I don't know what the situation is. I pictured it as a hole full of water that you just.
Yeah. So what it is, it's a chamber that's been flooded. So you don't know how big that chamber is, obviously.
Okay. But she probably would climb in, huh? I mean, it just.
Yeah.
I didn't have a good picture of it.
So while the rest of you are starting to strip off your gear, Lily, if you're going to dive into this or jump into it, I'm going to need athletics and a constitution save as you kind of dive down into this cold water.
Can I retcon one thing real quick before she actually jumps in?
Yeah.
That is that she's going to tie the base of a 50-foot rope to the statue.
Good thinking.
The other one around her waist, and then she's going to go in.
All right, good.
Okay, you want an athletics?
Yeah, an athletics to swim, constitution to hold your breath because the water is very cold.
Okay, well, it's 18 to swim.
Perfect. She is a swimmer.
And
you are a took after all, so of course you know how to swim.
Constitution, where is that? Okay, the 14 Constitution.
Okay.
Oh, Constitution save. Yeah, it's still 14.
Yeah, okay, good. Now give me a D10 roll. You see Lily, she sits on the edge, drops her feet in and disappears with a little ripple of water as she drops.
It gets a 9 on that.
Okay. You dig down. I mean, you dig down. You swim down, and you can't see. I mean, it's pitch darkness here. You just go in the general direction you think. the glint that you saw, and you kind of reach around with your hands. You can feel your lungs starting to burn, and your hands close around this. It feels like rough wood and metal. And you open your eyes and look up, and you can see that disc of light as you kick your way back up. There's this kind of gasp of breath as Lily breaks the surface, and she sets up a small chest that you can see. It's probably about the size, maybe about 12 inches by 8, and as high, 8 inches high. You know, see that it seems to be waterlogged and rotten from being in water for so long.
It's hobbit-sized.
It is hobbit-sized.
I think Moira is probably pulling off her second sock. Lily, what are you doing? You can't go in by yourself.
Yeah.
Lily's like, I did fine. Look what I found.
As you set it on the marble floor, there's like an insuck of air, and it pulls at you and it rocks you a bit. Badu, as you stand up on the landing, and all of the braziers go out, and the torches as well, and you all stand in darkness. You're kind of kicking your feet, treading water in this opening, and you hear this.
And as soon as he was looking down at everyone, he had kind of forgotten the reason he was up there. As soon as that happened, he immediately hand to his back to grab the handle of his axe, and he's gonna make his way towards the entrance of the barrow and look out. Look out into the open area and see if he can, if he sees anything coming or anything like that.
Yeah, it's like 2 quick strides and you're outside in the night air. You see the silver moon above the starlit sky. You see nothing else. You feel there's a strong breeze that just kind of blew across you and into this tomb.
Yeah, and then he would after a couple moments, he would kind of just lurch back, like he's just kind of taking steps back while keeping his eyes on the outside, and just kind of lean his head to the rest of the fellowship whilst keeping his eyes there, and just let them know that there's nothing outside.
Yeah, you hear Badu yell in the darkness. There's nothing here, as I'm assuming he would say. Lily, I need you to make an athletics and a strength save, please. Not athletics, strength save.
I'm so glad I'm rolling well tonight. That's 18.
Good. You feel this cold hand clamp across your ankle and start to yank you under. You guys can't see it, but Wari would. You would see this very muted, like shades of gray. You would see Lily's head disappear under the surface of the water. And you feel this hand pulling you down. You tried to gulp some air, and then you pull free, and you see Lily's head, Wari, pop up. The rest of you would just hear it, and this gas and sputtering from the small halfling.
Can she grab a rope and try to climb out?
You certainly could. You're in pitch darkness.
Wari would probably grab onto the rope. I'm assuming that he would be near it, but not maybe near enough to grab herself.
Yeah, you go quickly to work. You're despite being a dwarf, you're pretty nimble of feet. You go over and quickly help pull Lily free of the opening. Lily, you're sitting there cold, dripping wet. The rest of you can hear there's like that heavy breathing. And you hear the dripping. Drip, drip.
Could she feel around for her cloak, which she left right next to the entrance?
You're not sure where Wari pulled you out, but you start doing that.
Kind of, she's crawling around, kind of feeling around for the cloak and her back.
And then you hear this.
Arafor would just kind of be
Yeah, go.
Arafor would just kind of be looking around frantically as if that was going to do anything in the darkness, but he would just say, "Someone try to light another torch. I need to see."
And just as you say that, Arafor, there's this sound and a crack, and all 6 of these berserkers light, immediately putting the room back in that orange glow. You see Lily drenched, dripping, the water pooling below at her feet on the marble floor. And it's making almost this this viscous mud from the dust. And you see Badu up at the landing. Drip, drip. And then there's a ripple in the water. And it starts to swirl. And it swirls more faster and faster. And it starts to rise up and take form. And as it does, it becomes more substance than water. Black. Dark. Takes on the form of a man, or man-shaped. It just stands there hovering above this trapdoor, this pool. Who disturbs my rest? And that's where we'll end tonight.
Ah!
Eek.
All right, guys.
Game Nazguls.
It's not a Nazgul, thankfully.
Some sort of a undead guardian or something.
Yeah,
Dead
Arafor
water
would know immediately what this thing is.
But you won't tell us till next week, huh?
Or the week after.
Oh, that's right, because they won't be there next week. Oh,
Right.
yeah.
All right, I'm going to stop the broadcast.